Hello, everyone out there in radio or internet land. It is once again that time. All right, folks. Well, now that I gave you the good news, it's time to move on to some not so good news. Um, we talk a lot on this show. We've talked a lot on the show over the years about Southwest Michigan first. And let me put on my Marxist hat real quick. I guess I am wearing it. Cash rules everything around me. I mean, that was my first bit. That was my first bit of Marxist analysis I learned as a teenager. But anyway, um, so we talked a lot about Southwest Michigan first on the show, and let's real quick explainer before we dive into this issue, so you understand a little bit more what this is all about. Southwest Michigan First is basically the big kind of alliance of businesses and capitalists. I mean, let's say call it what it is. In the Southwest Michigan area. And they've been behind a lot of plans for development. Most notably, one of the main engines behind setting up the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence, which again they has been pitched over the years as like this wonderful grand thing that the billionaires and business people have set up for us wonderful peasants, which kind of side skirts the whole premise of it, which is basically a response at the time. And again, I'm not going to go do a whole analysis of that because that's hours in. But at the time, there was discussion about a progressive income tax. It got shot down and basically choked by Southwest Michigan First, most notably, and in its place was put in the Foundation for Excellence, which basically gives a handful of billionaires and millionaires in this town a controlling stake in our city government's budget. Now, there have been efforts to democratize it as best as possible along the way, but at the actual root, the Foundation for Excellence is basically this libertarian wet dream. And again, they talk a lot about like how lovely and wonderful they are for providing the funds for the city budget. And let's never forget from the outset, if they wanted to be nice and provide like economic resources for our city, they could have just let themselves be taxed. There's a mechanism for that, a democratic mechanism. But no, it's easier to say like, look how nice we are, but we also have kind of erstwhile control over it. And a lot of them were kind of obliquely threatening like capital flight if they didn't get their way. So that's the background. Southwest Michigan first. Now let's talk a little bit about. So they're getting a new guy. For some of us old timers, Ron Kitchens has always been kind of the figurehead of this. And as a friend of mine said, it's the difference between a what is it? A neoliberal hybrid lizard person and somebody who is like kind of a more comic book capitalist villain. And that would be where Lee Chatfield steps in. Now, it might be a little unfair to call him like a comic book villain, but he is definitely more politically at odds. Even more so than Ron Kitchens, to the idea of what I would like to call social democratic economic development, i.e., a type of economic development where the working people actually get to decide how the economy is developed. Now, for Ron Kitchen's faults, there was at least kind of this focus on local businesses. However, Ron Kitchens, Southwest Michigan First, they've been dead set on this whole idea of an events center, which we've critiqued a lot on the show. And as I've pointed out many times, the actual residents of the city of Kalamazoo, time and time again, have said in no uncertain terms, we do not want this. We do not want that land to be used for an events center. However, recently, Brant Eiden pushed it through state legislature. Gretchen Whitmer signed off on it. Let's not forget, even a lot of praise has been dumped on her for handling the pandemic like an adult, a capitalist adult, though. Let's not forget, better things were done in other countries. Some New Zealand, they can go to parties and stuff right now. A lot of us are still stuck in the house. But she rubber stamped it and was like, yeah, event center in downtown Kalamazoo. Why not? Mm. And also very astute for them to push such a thing in this very kind of lame duck period where honestly a lot of the activist base in this town is exhausted. Not a lot of people have the capacity to take up the mantle and push back against an event center. If you're watching and you're looking for a project, there's one. There you go. I don't know. Maybe I'll start writing some letters and getting a petition going, but I prefer someone else to it. I've got a lot on my plate. But I digress. So, okay, what are the big things that we should expect from a Lee Chatfield? So let's suppose you don't know him. I didn't really know much about him before I got this article today. So I did some internet sleuthing, some duck going, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I found. So I think the more critical thing is like how he's voted in the state legislature, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So just to paint a picture, Lee Chatfield, he was the Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives, he's Republican. He's from Levering, and he was representing the 107th District, which is right at kind of the Mackinac Bridge area, a good chunk of the UP and some of the Upper Peninsula, but ostensibly up north in a very red area. We're talking about like red, blue, Democrat, Republican, blah blah. So I did want to reference a couple of things. Like I'm more concerned with his voting record, but it should be pointed out that he is part of the current material conditions and a lot of the wackiness we've seen in the last few years since President Trump was elected. Back in 2018, Chatfield attempted to bring a loaded, unregistered handgun onto a commercial flight at the Pellston Regional Airport. He was fined $250 for it. And he also paid a $1,960 fine to the Transportation Security Administration. He's also previously introduced a bill in the Michigan House of Representatives to make handgun registration voluntary. I'm not going to deep dive too much on that. I think if I had some of my other co-hosts, maybe it'd be like more of a debate. But where I usually fall on subjects like this is like, yeah, I am a kind of Marxist communist guy, under no pretext. So yeah, I'm not about gun control, but I do think there's at the same time common sense things like, nah, you bringing your gun into an airport, especially without notifying anybody, and the whole thing of like gun registration, and that's a bigger debate, but that's clownish, cartoonish. It reminds me a lot of the stories we've been hearing from the federal Congress in Washington D.C. of these Republican Congress people who are acting all butthurt because they can't go into the Senate chambers strapped, which like it's ridiculous. These people are not adults. I'm a responsible gun owner. I understand there's areas I should not bring my 357 or it. I'm not going to show up to like a community event with with a shotgun over my shoulder. It's ridiculous, and it is alarming on a cultural level that he plays into some of this stuff. Because again, the CEO of Southwest Michigan First has a lot of economic power when it comes to shaping our community. Also, talking about kind of the right-wing zeitgeist, he's a little uncomfortably close degrees of separation from some of the right-wing fascist shenanigans that have been happening this year. He did in several tweets, he questioned why members of the state legislature were not informed of the kidnapping and assassination plot against the governor, saying that members of the legislature and others on the state capitol grounds may have also been at risk from violent actions. And to be fair, that is, if you just take that by itself, that's a kind of valid, understandable question. However, this is a very interesting point. Zach Pohl, the communications director for Whitmer, responded to that by saying that Chatfield's father had organized a rally against the governor on the same day that the plot was revealed. And as we all know, similar rallies against the governor's COVID-19 health actions intersected with a lot of the coup conspirators that were involved in that kidnapping plots. There's evidence from a rally on April 30th. So Chatfield's dad was organizing the same kind of, you have the Venn diagram of people who were plotting to like kidnap the governor and who think that common sense measures against a plague are tyranny. Oh, fun. So there's a little bit of like kind of the background and character of the guy. And I'm going to cite a little bit from the article. So the WWMT did an interview with him. And of course, he mentioned one of his first priorities is going to be that new event center that, again, Kalamazoo residents don't actually want, but Southwest Michigan First does. So sorry, who could do democracy? It could be an attraction to get more people here, and that's what Southwest Michigan First is all about, Chatfield said. What people is a good question. Essentially, my big concern is like this dude seems to be ideologically comfortable with gentrification, to put it lightly. And I say that because a lot of the bills, and I'm going to reference a couple of them that he co-sponsored while he was in the Michigan State House of Representatives, were very anti-democratic. They were very. It goes back to this whole Republican hypocrisy around how we want local control. We want local control. Oh, do you? They say that, it's funny, they say that so often in their messaging, but when it boils down to it, so many Republicans, including this guy, will co-sponsor bills that actually strip local autonomy away from communities. And I'm just going to go ahead and reference a couple of those. He supported a bill that would kind of restrict the authority of counties to impose licensing requirements on certain occupations. That was HB 5962. He also restricted, it was a bill to preempt local ordinances. So, i.e., a county or city could create an ordinance that could prohibit, restrict, or mandate the use of certain materials for public works projects and allow compensation for the use of or supply of certain materials. So again, restricting what a local community can do to give more economic authoritarian power to the state or to local corporations or business collectives such as Southwest Michigan First. Again, those bills speak to a larger trajectory, a larger ethos of these type of Republicans who will say one thing about not wanting the state to have control over the local or the Fed to have control over the state, but in action will be putting bills in to the state at the state house level to restrict the type of control that local municipalities should be able to have. Now, we can break down and have a larger discussion about what real localism could look like in a deeper communistic or anarchist way. But at this moment, he's basically talking about whatever kind of localized democracy we have, these bills effectively upend it. The local representatives that we elect no longer have the power or ability to do things that we as local citizens have elected them to do. And that is a bad precedent for somebody coming in to be the new CEO of Southwest Michigan First. Because as this whole event center it is coming in and is looking at getting built, it's basically a big FU to the residents of Kalamazoo who said that we did not want this. And their new CEO is a guy, through his voting record, through his record as a legislator, has said several times, I don't care about your city or your county being able to have a representative democracy. I want the state, and more keenly, I want corporations to have more control about what happens in your backyard than you do. But I'm going to dress up in this whole like ideology of, I just want the government off people's backs. No, you want the government to be used as a tool so that corporations can do whatever they want, and the actual working people who live in these communities don't have a say. Now, is that harsh? No, I don't think so. Because we have to look at what these folks have done before to see what they are going to do in the future. And it does not bode well that Ron Kitchen's replacement, and for the CEO of Southwest Michigan First, is going to crank. We talked about like how Foundation for Excellence, libertarian wet dream, he's going to just crank that into overdrive. And my concern is he's going to give kind of the economic priority to the worst actors in our community, and to big corporations. We see this a lot. Again, we have even like local, business collectives. Like, I'm thinking like Plaza Corp and the Millennium Group. They have an ostensible interest in trying to keep the economy somewhat localized. I'm very curious what this Lee fellow, his priorities are going to be for that. What's downtown going to look like after this guy has been CEO for like 3, 4, 5 years? And also, how is that going to tie into, like, he's talking about bringing new people in the community. A lot of times that's like a dog whistle for, we want more upwardly mobile, rich people in the community, and we want to push poor people out to the margins. And again, we've had a lot of good things happening over the last year to buck back against that. I'm thinking of the things like the eviction diversion program. I'm thinking of things like having somebody new in the land bank who that's a priority to them. I'm thinking about all the recent civil rights work that's gone down at the city level. But it looks like now we've got somebody who is heavily in the corporate corner, who is going to have a lot of outsized economic influence over our community. We need to start watching this guy now. We need to watch him closely. We need to watch him even more closely than we ever did with like Ron Kitchens or Southwest Michigan First. Because again, the decisions that come down from this organization are going to have a profound impact on the city. They already have. Again, we've got this unprecedented tax scam running our city budget instead of something that makes any sort of democratic sense. Get ready, watch this guy. I'm going to be extremely skeptical of this fella, and he's just gonna be getting settled into Kalamazoo. My suggestion, I think the folks who do community social justice work here, who organize our neighborhoods and our communities, we need to put this dude on notice and basically let him know what the rules are. You come into our community, you have to listen to us, not the other way around. All right. So I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got a lot more to talk about. Thanks, y'all, listening to the Hood Rat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR. Or you can listen online on the web stream. We play twice a week on the radio. That's Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. and Monday from 3 to 5. And you can always find our episodes here on our Facebook page. And we also are putting clips on YouTube now. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share those videos out. Again, we try to do this kind of local punditry, focus on local issues, and do that analysis of larger issues from a local perspective. Thank you very much. We will be right back, your only source for political revolution.